The United States and China announced today an agreement to drastically reduce tit-for-tat tariffs for 90 days, de-escalating a trade war that has rolled financial markets and raised fears of a global economic downturn. After the first talks, U.S. President Donald Trump launched his trade war. The world's two biggest economies agreed in a joint statement to bring their triple-digit tariffs down to two figures and continue negotiations. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent described the weekend discussions with Chinese Vice Premier Hen Lifen and International Trade Representative Li Shenghan as productive and robust.
Consensus from both delegations this weekend is neither side wants a decoupling. And what had occurred with these very high tariffs, as Ambassador Greer said, was the equivalent of an embargo, and neither side wants that. We do want trade. We want more balanced trade, and I think that both sides are committed to achieving that.
This agreement is really about the reciprocal tariff which was imposed by the United States on April 2nd and the escalatory steps which followed. Those on each side, the Chinese side and the U.S. side, ended up at 125% on each other. The Chinese had additional non-tariff countermeasures. That has all come down by 115% to 10% each. The United States earlier this year imposed 20% related to fentanyl. That still exists. So if you're looking at Trump Term 2, tariffs on China, right now effective, it's 30%.
Well, it's Brigade Group Managing Director, Kari Asset Management Limited, Johnson Chukwu. He joins me live from Lagos. Mr. Chukwu, thanks for joining us on The World Now. How significant would you say this tariff reduction is in easing global trade tensions, and what immediate economic impacts can we expect for both the U.S. and China?
Thank you, Nifemi, for having me. Clearly, if you look at the response of the global capital market, you will actually see how relieved the global economy is. We've seen exchanges gain 2%, starting with the 2% gain. We've seen Eurobond instruments gaining, starting with the $2 gain from the start of trade today. So that will actually indicate how relieved the world is with this reduction in tariff. Bear in mind that U.S. and China are the world's largest economy. Between the two of them, they control more than 30% of the global economic output and trade. So the impact of a trade war of the magnitude that we saw had already begun to reflect in the U.S. and in China. For instance, in the U.S., reports show that the number of ships expected to bet in U.S. have dropped drastically, and we are beginning to see a decline in stock of goods, basic goods in U.S. shops. On the Chinese side, we've seen reduction in demand for goods produced in China. Indeed. There is already concern that Chinese manufacturers may begin to retrench. And all this will have multiple impacts on global trade, global production, and generally global economic activities. So it's a major relief to the global economy, and that has actually been kind of manifested in the response of market traders in both equities and fixed income instruments.
Absolutely. We're seeing both economies facing domestic pressures, inflation in the U.S., China's economic experiencing some slowdown as well. It's why some have said we aren't sure whether this agreement is a strategic pause or a long-term de-escalation in trade wars. But which of these sectors, such as manufacturing, tech, or agriculture, stand to benefit the most from these tariff cuts? And could this also boost investor confidence in emerging markets like Nigeria?
Well, let's start from which sectors are likely going to benefit from these tariff cuts. I think as it relates to the U.S., the agricultural sector will be one of the strongest beneficiaries. Most of the tariff that were imposed by China, the 125% tariff that was imposed by China, we are largely on agricultural produce. So that would ordinarily have stifled agricultural production in the U.S. And bear in mind that the blue-collar workers are the core supporters of Donald Trump. So he would have had it tough in the midterm election. As it relates to China, I think technology, IT infrastructure, IT products will be the most beneficiary. Also recall that Trump had actually pulled back on tariff on IT and telecommunication infrastructure. But as it stands today, with this reduction in tariff between the two countries, I think telco products will be one of the most beneficiaries. And also recognizing the fact that China is one of the largest producers of tech equipment in the world today. As to your earlier comment on whether this is going to be a temporary relief or it's going to be a long-lasting understanding of de-escalation, clearly, Trump has actually eaten his a humble pie. He has come to recognize that his thoughts about the strength of the U.S. economy was misplaced or was wrong. Some of us had actually said ab initio that the forces of economics we're going to teach him a very bitter lesson, which I think he should be dealing with now. So I don't see how he will restore those tariffs. I clearly think this is just a very smart way to pull back entirely from the tariff. Remember, he had actually earlier suspended the tariffs for other countries by 90 days. So suspending the tariff by 90 days also means that he has realized that it's a no-win war that he actually triggered.
Well, we'll see how it goes, how it plays out from here, because there are still relevant risks and non-tariff barriers like geopolitical tensions that could still disrupt trade relations between both countries. But we are quite optimistic to see where this leads us. Thank you so much for your contribution. I've been speaking with Managing Director, Carry Asset Management Limited, Johnson Chukwu.
Thank you for having me.